Lead by inspiring, lead by experience, lead by example, lead by. The Leadership Podcast brought to you by Ezeni. My name is Matt Stancombe and I'm your host, bringing you thought-provoking, inspirational chat every month. Hear from leaders, business owners, coaches and subject matter experts from across a variety of industries. So however you consume your podcasts, turn up the volume, relax, and above all, enjoy this month's guest. Hey, Lead By listeners, thank you for swinging by for another episode. This time I join Tate Recruitment's Operations Director, Becky Webber, for a really great informal chat at the Tate HQ in London. Becky is an incredibly talented, people-focused leader who has a long-standing career with Tate, with her role progressing from the ground up to where she is today, leading some really important and inspirational initiatives that shape change and are leading the business into new territory. What is clear from this conversation is Becky has a genuine care towards the people she works with and leads. And from her early years in a training setting to today, I can assure you there are some great nuggets and advice sharing in this episode that you simply won't want to miss. I'm lucky enough to be in London today in sunny Soho with my guest, which is fabulous. And I'll do a quick introduction in a moment. But just to remind you, please check out our other content via our links in YouTube and all other social platforms. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into today's episode. And I'm joined by Becky Webber. Hello, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me in your offices today in sunny London.
It's a pleasure.
Our audience probably don't know you that well, and we certainly haven't featured you on our socials before, but Tate is the company you work for, right? A massive recruitment company in London, but also you have huge national coverage.
That's right.
So today we're going to talk just a little bit about your background, who you are within the company, what you do, your history, but also just really taking the leadership sense, the ezeni topics that we love to talk about, and really getting to understand that by kicking off with that horrible question: how long have you been with the company and what do you do?
Well, I've been with the company a long time. So yes, 26 years. I don't think that's cool to say that anymore. We've gone through a lot of changes. And I've grown a lot in that time as well. So started, if you like, as a consultant from grassroots, and then progressed my way into my current role, which is Operations Director for the South. And I also look after our ED&I and also do a considerable amount of social marketing as well for the organisation, which I started in January. So quite a diverse job, keeps me on my toes. I have a fabulous team, but obviously I've been here a long time, so I must enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a long time, but you've also done a lot in that time. So you've covered a lot of different roles, I guess. What drew you to the recruitment industry in the first place, or, the talent selection industry? What was it that really attracted you?
Well, it's nothing glamorous other than I fell into it, to be fair.
Yeah.
So before working in the recruitment industry, I worked within the travel industry for quite some time and worked my way into a leadership position there in my mid-20s. And then that was up in the Midlands. I ended up in the end, and I wanted to move back down south again. And I registered with a number of recruitment agencies, and it was lovely because they obviously saw my potential of being in the recruitment industry, because I got offered quite a few opportunities to pursue the recruitment industry at that time. And I deliberated and I took another job, which was in training, funny enough, and then decided, do you know what, I might explore that recruitment side a bit more. I love a fast-paced role, and certainly there's been no looking back really after 26 years, but I originally started with an organisation called The Agency, and The Agency was 26 years ago. It's gone through such an evolution and buyouts and obviously acquisitions. So it's still the same company. I've just worked for a number of different brands within it. So, but really doing the same sort of role. So as in working with office professionals and office support types of recruitment.
Yeah. And for those that are watching the podcast, the video version these days, there's a lot of hustle and bustle here in the office, as we can see. And
yes,
for those listening, you can probably hear a bit of movement, but it's a really vibrant place to work, isn't it?
Yeah.
What makes it a great place to work?
For me, it's the culture. For Tate itself, we've got a number of different brands in the office here. So we're owned by the RSS Global, which is a global organisation, but Tate itself is one of the brands that fall under RSS Global. The culture of the business is very trusting, psychological safety, which underpins most culture, or a good culture, if you like, of where you're able to be yourself when you come to work, that you're trusted to get on and do the job your way, and that you can live and breathe the values that are mutual and share. My own values are very, very much the same as what Tate's are. All of it kind of embeds into that sort of feeling that you can just be yourself and feel free to deliver your best within the right environment. We also have a sort of remote first model within Tate, but we have the opportunity to work in offices such as this, as well, in a hybrid model. And that's been really, really good as well. So it gives people the opportunity to work flexibly to suit their lives, because I think we all know that our personal life blends into our work life nowadays, and it's very difficult to separate the two. So the fact that you can actually complement both with a certain way of working, certainly for me personally, it really works for me. So all of that has kept me working for Tate for all this time. So it's been, really, really good. I'm not saying it's been perfect all the time, because change obviously comes with its challenges as well and adjustments. But ultimately, the core of who Tate are have remained a bit like a stick of rock, I guess. It's the same sort of writing all the way through. And that's why I'm here. Love it.
Yeah. And after 26 years, have you seen any evolution in the culture? You said that it's a big part of what you love here and it's close to your values and beliefs. Have you seen it evolve alongside how you see life in a leadership role and recruitment?
Yeah, I think, I suppose it has evolved. When I think back to when I started, was it dramatically different? Not especially. I felt that I was invested in, I was respected and valued from the very beginning. I've never felt that I wasn't. I feel like I've got a voice, and it gets listened to. That psychological safety of feeling that you are in a place where you can speak up and talk about things that you're passionate about, I think is really important, because that's what can make change happen. Just to give you an example, a few years ago, I spoke up about menopause in the workplace, because I was just very concerned about how it impacts an individual and how a business can support that individual through the workplace. So I stood up and spoke on behalf of lots of different people. And now we've got toolkits in the business. And we've got tonight, actually between 4 and 5 this afternoon, we've got a guest speaker talking about it to educate people. And it's a really popular event. So that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a voice. But I'm not the only one that can have a voice. Everyone can have a voice within our organisation. So it's really freeing and very liberating to be able to do that. Obviously, always in the right way, of course.
Yeah, I think that's a sign of a great company today, isn't it? Where you've got this collective of different views and opinions and life experiences. And when the leader can recognise those little intricacies in the culture and how to draw upon that with all that knowledge and wisdom, life events, you suddenly see people's eyes open up wider and become more receptive to the direction that the company wants to change, because they feel part of the culture and all of that life journey. And I think it's great. Menopause is a massive topic in a lot of big corporates now, and rightly so, because it does impact people on a huge level, and there's very little knowledge of it. And there has been very little knowledge of how to manage and deal with people's emotions and expectations of the workplace. So I think it's fabulous that you're an ambassador of that, and obviously it's a huge attraction. I've worked in organisations where that's had a similar effect, and it suddenly has the ability to kickstart behaviours in people. That then means that they go above and beyond, and it doesn't all have to be within the hours you're set to work within. And as you were saying, we have the capacity these days to work from home and work more flexibly. So when you embrace people's knowledge, understanding, and some of those things that we have to deal with on a daily basis, suddenly we can get more out of people. And that sounds very cold and callous, but it's a two-way street, isn't it? where, if you're employed and you need to get the best out of the role, but you also need to get the best out of people, and therefore you got to try to make it easy for them to come to work, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I agree. And personal storytelling is so powerful. I mean, in my ED&I part of my job, that has been the most impactful side that's propelled change and changed hearts and minds. Because if you see someone you care about within your business, talk about a topic that perhaps you weren't aware that they were experiencing or whatever, it makes you think differently. And some of those sort of biases and misconceptions or just a new level of understanding arises. And it really is so incredibly powerful. It's such a learning journey, but it's been so enlightening and so rewarding. Another reason why I'm with the business is that I can take on additional responsibilities, but I'm very proactive in stepping forward towards them. I love a project. So it's good for, I'm motivated by learning. So
yeah, you've touched on a subject that I really want to talk about, and we spoke a little bit about this off camera. But let's dig into the ILM, which is a huge organisation, the Institute for Leadership and Management. Again, what made you go in that direction? Because that's obviously has a huge link to your day job, and you have a very senior role. But why did you decide to effectively give up your time and further educate yourself?
Yeah, well, it was I think it's been very busy, as well as my day job. Obviously, I'm doing an ILM level 7 in executive mentoring and coaching. The reason I wanted to do that was because I wanted to be a better leader. Also, I have spent a lot of time, I've got my own website, which is kind of like a way of giving back. So during COVID, I created my own website with lots of job seeker support. It's called Positive Career Advice. I did over 300 webinars through COVID for job seekers on LinkedIn optimization and CVs. It was incredibly rewarding, and I learned so much from the people that were on those webinars. And it made me really think about actually communication is so important. Listening and to understand is really, really important. But similarly, if you had the skills to enable people to see the potential that they have within them, because we've all got greater potential than we know that we have today, what a wonderful gift to give someone. So I wanted to get better at it. And it's like any learning journey. It can be quite very hard at the beginning because you have to unlearn some of those habits that actually have seen you well through your career, but actually aren't going to help you through this next stage of your learning. But I'm now starting to feel things slotting into place, like changing your job. When you first start at a company, it always feels daunting, doesn't it? And you feel like, I'm never going to learn all of this. But after a while, it all slots into place. So I'm starting to feel that more now. But I really wanted to do it to be a better leader, but also I wanted to practice what I preach. The world is evolving around us incredibly quickly. I don't want to be irrelevant. So I always say to people that, that continuous learning, that lifelong learning, because we're living longer now. We don't necessarily want to retire at 67. For many of us, it's not even possible because we might have more bills to pay. We've got potentially another 30 years after that. And our retirement funds aren't necessarily as wonderful as we'd like them to be. And so therefore we have to reinvent ourselves. But I think you also get to a point where you want to find something more purposeful and meaningful in your life at a certain age as well. And that's certainly the sort of point I got to that made me decide to really commit myself to further education. And I haven't done, level 7 is equivalent to a master's. It's not like I'm sat here doing a GCSE.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of work.
It really is. And it is overwhelming. I'm not going to tell you any fibs here, but as I've gone through the journey, what they tend to tell you is that you tend to kind of find your niche, or you find something you start to feel really passionate about. And where I'm in the world of recruitment, I have been so for a long time. My job's evolved considerably in that time. All of the things I've done for Positive Career Advice, it all kind of starts to knit together with something to do with careers. And what I'm finding myself particularly passionate about is around career reinvention. So I can see myself following a path that way. But that's to complement what I do on a day job. So the other aspect of that from a internal Tate perspective and within organisations is like career crafting. So career crafting is like a bottom-up kind of approach where proactive people like myself who search out projects and further development and want to enhance their skills, look at how they can enhance the business by taking on additional responsibilities. So as an example, I've stepped up and said I wanted to lead the ED&I journey for Tate. And then more recently, because I have a bit of what's known to be a creative flair, don't know where that's come from, but it's come from somewhere, the social media marketing and all of the, a lot of the marketing material, not all of it, but some of it, I've been designing and creating. So I'm kind of adding these extra bits to my job, but they all have a dotted line to one another. So it means that I when you talk about leadership, for me, leadership is about making sure that you find that passion, that thing you want to do, because it gets you through those rough bits. And what I care about with Tate is the fact that I want to more humanise our brand, take us away from that sort of maybe corporate perception and bring to life the people that work within the business. And I've got the ability to do that through my ED&I. I can do it through my leadership, I can do it through my coaching, and I can do it through my social media presence as well. So it all interlinks. It's funny how things work out.
There's a huge connection there, a huge link. And I can see it's a passion for people at the end of all this there, isn't there?
Yeah, very much so.
And I remember when we first chatted before, obviously we had this recording, you talked about the growth in marketing and humanising. And I really love that because that's one of the values that Ignition and ezeni have. We want to humanise what we do. And it's clear that's working for Tate because you have near enough 40,000 plus followers on LinkedIn, don't you?
Yes.
A huge number of connections.
We started this year, something I'm particularly proud of, so I will share these figures. We started on about 37,000 back in January. And when I took over the social media marketing more so, alongside marketing, so the two of us were working more together, we've now gone we're now at over 45,000. So our sort of followers is increasing every single month. And considerably against our competitors as well, which is obviously my competitive side coming out there. But that's what's important. If people don't know you're there, you remain the best kept secret. And to be fair, I've often felt that about Tate and the people that work for us, that we are a well kept secret. And so I got the opportunity now to bring that to life. We have an average tenure in this business of 8.7 years, which is very rare within the recruitment industry. And that's for a reason, and that's because of the culture that we have and the people. We recruit very values-focused people that care about what they do, and what a shame if we keep that quiet.
Yeah, I was going to say that I guess all of that DNA and the culture you've talked about already must transcend through your marketing voice, and that's what must attract people to come and work with you to find their next role or certainly advertise their roles. So what is that recipe in terms of, if you think about your position in a leadership role, what's that voice that you're trying to transmit? I mean, you mentioned humanising, but what other values are you trying to make very clear through the Tate organisation?
In relation to sort of the external voice.
Your external voice, yeah.
So I think in the past, it's been a bit of a, I suppose, organisations might be reticent to showcase their people. From where I sit, I think we should be loud and proud. And, it's a bit like talking about the customers that you work with. Why would we want to do that? Because the competitors might know about it. But actually, if you're proud about the relationship you have, then you should be proud about talking about it. And so that's really the stance that is the right stance, because we don't want to keep our people secrets. They're fantastic at what they do. So funny enough, probably from beginning of this year, maybe slightly before, we've seen more of the staff talking about building their own personal brands as well, which we would encourage 100%. And it's lovely to see that people, employee advocacy, I guess when I was thinking about social marketing at the beginning of the year, if we're not posting posts on our LinkedIn page or social media pages that our staff are proud to share or proud to even like or comment on, then fundamentally we're never going to go anywhere in terms of raising brand awareness or raising the awareness of what we do. So my first mission was to create a voice around a posts that people want to share within our team. And that has really propelled that sort of sharing, if you like. So posts like celebrating milestones. We do an award system. So the award system is it's like an anytime award where employers can put someone forward for an award, and then we shout about those. We'll talk about our ED&I. It won't be just my voice, it will be someone else's voice. We've had Adam, who's in our London office now. He ran his 4th London Marathon last weekend. And so I interviewed him. And so his voice is out there now. We celebrated his time, which is fantastic. So all of these great things that people do over and above their job that enable them to be the best versions of themselves should be celebrated. And that's what we love to do. If provided people are comfortable with it, of course. We don't just ask permission, make sure they're okay with it. We do it in a way that suits them.
And you said personal brands, they're building themselves, they're building their namesake for Tate. That's really powerful. And again, that's what attracts people to come and work for Tate, I guess, as well as what you do and the service you provide. So in terms of the message you were talking about earlier, you mentioned reinventing yourself and that career progression. I just want to pick back at that because there's a lot in there that I think is really valuable and people would love to hear. You were talking about the culture changes and then reinventing yourself. Again, what made you do that? Because you said you had to unlearn some things during your ILM studies and you had to unlearn some elements of, I guess, managerial practice. But what were those sorts of parts and when did you recognize them?
Really good question. So I guess my natural instinct, and I'll probably speak on behalf of quite a lot of people, and I say that confidently because the people on the same course were all having the same dilemma, but we have a natural tendency, we want to fix things. And sometimes we're not the right person to fix things for other people. And that's the whole element behind the coaching aspect, is that people have more potential within them than they realise. And actually the benefit of coaching is enabling people to raise their self-awareness so that they can support solving their own problems and digging deeper within themselves to see solutions. So I guess fundamentally one of the first things I had to recognise very early on was that stop trying to fix things and give the answer. And I'm fairly good at that, but I had to really make sure I was very intentional about that because it is kind of a habit as well. But the benefit of that has impacted me positively in not just work, but also at home life, personal life. No one likes to be told how to do things all the time. And sometimes when people are coming to you just to talk, they just want to be heard. They don't want an answer. They just want to be listened to and validated. And I think sometimes that we can slip into that mode of trying to come up with an answer to make them feel better, but actually that's probably not what they want to hear. So I think it's just recognising what does someone want from that conversation. And yeah, just being much more self-aware of it. So that was, I guess, a big realisation for me at the beginning. But being more aware of it has made me much better and more intentional about not being that way. So it's been good.
It's a real coaching attribute that you're talking about right there. You know, having the ability to ask some very broad questions, poignant questions, but actually listening to what people have to say. And I think that what a lot of managers who are transitioning from operations into leadership fail to recognise, they think because they're a subject matter expert or general manager of practice that they have to know everything and therefore they have to tell everybody how to do it.
Yeah.
And you soon realise that the more senior you become, actually it's about stepping back and creating space for people, to discover the answers themselves and helping them along the way. And interestingly enough, we just put out a post on our social channels that highlights some of those topics, maybe the sort of mistakes and things that people should consider in order to be a great manager and a great leader. And one of those was be the coach. Stop telling people what to do and give them the space to figure out the answers and find them. Just guide them towards them. And that sometimes is the easiest and best way for people to grow.
It also means that you don't have to have all the answers. It's actually really, really freeing. And funny enough, you just triggered something in my mind, that a fundamental thing that I had to transition myself from an operational management role into a leadership role. And I remember what a big step that was, where I needed to get out of the way of my staff to enable them to realise their potential. And it's a big step for anyone that's been promoted, and you don't always get a huge amount of training to support you with it, because you're just naturally expected to try and get it. I remember, so one of the things that I did is that for me it was about making sure that I created mentorship and sponsorship around me as I transitioned into my role. And I remember a statement that someone said to me when I moved from operational management into leadership: make yourself redundant. Oh, that's a little bit harsh. Obviously, not really, but the whole point is make it so they don't need you day to day. Be the leader, empower them, let them make mistakes, let them learn from mistakes, be there to guide them. But then what that enables you to do is free yourself up to do the things that will take the business forward. And it was the best bit of advice I was ever given, because had I not made that transition from being a doer into the leader, I wouldn't be able to take on the ED&I side. I wouldn't be able to take on more of the social marketing side. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be able to develop myself because I'd be so entrenched in making sure I was there for all my staff all of the time, 24/7. And that's like putting people in boxes and caging them, and that's not the best way to get the best out of people. So you just reminded me of that, and I think it was one of a massive learn for me when I was promoted. But I've never looked back, and the best advice I was ever given.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people share that opinion, and I certainly have that in my experience, where you suddenly realise you're basically transitioning from that operations management into strategic leader, inspirational leader. And you can then really guide the team and people to start to get those nuances in the right way, because everybody has a different way of working, and you need to get the best out of that person, not tell them how to do it. So framing what they need to do and how they do it is just part of that role. So yes, I love the fact that you're freeing yourself of responsibility of the daily grind, but you can concentrate on the things that matter, which is building a culture that people want to be part of. And a culture doesn't establish itself overnight. It takes years and years to get that to the point. And the good news for Tate is with that role tenure of 8 to 10 years that you described earlier, that's plenty of time to get the best in place and nurture them all the way through to those roles. And you are a huge ambassador of that yourself, where you've made a career progression through the organization because you absolutely get the values of the company and the company understands you. So yeah, fundamentally, that's the relationship you want to have. And that's a big one, because I guess what you've made and what you've done with the change is change into a coaching mentality. And in terms of taking that time to educate yourself and do that at your level, as you say, which is near enough a master's level, has really transformed your day job as a leader.
I'm very lucky. I have a very supported MD. I also looked at the structure of my region and how I could restructure it slightly so that I had less direct reports, but still the same size team, but give my managers more responsibility for more people. Rather than me having them, certain people report directly to me. So that was one of the other things that I did at the beginning, is I restructured the region to enable me to do that. The other thing is, so for example, with the ED&I side of things, I put my hand up 3 years ago for that. And very much at the beginning, I was very much orchestrating it, not necessarily doing everything because I couldn't, but I've now turned into more of a facilitator of that. So enabling people to, just the same with my region really, enabling people to step up more and take more responsibility and accountability for things that really matter to them. And again, getting out of their way, not feeling like they have to check everything with me unless it's something, that they're not sure of or whatever, but we have some guidelines and stuff, but that we work around and understandings. But it also means that I'm not there spending all my hours doing, because I know fundamentally that doesn't serve the people around me in the best way. Actually, I remember a previous CEO saying we have to get out of the way of our staff to let them perform. And that is a statement I have never forgotten, because I absolutely believe in it. And it's never done any harm for me. It's actually only done good. So that then enabled me to take on the additional responsibility. The other thing in the long run it can do is the fact that we have evolved our business to recruit for more senior appointments. So we all know that when you start in a role, those first 6 months particularly can be quite tough and quite lonely if you're in a senior role. So there's no reason why some of that coaching can't come in as an extra added value to some of our candidates and our employers to support those people transition into their new roles. So there's lots of benefits because there's all links with it. So I didn't really have a problem really, or a struggle to with my support, because it's actually making me a stronger leader too. So there's benefits all round.
You're pushing on an open door.
Yeah, I really very much so. But I think, it's a case of I've already got that trust in place, and that honesty and openness. And, if there was anything that my MD was ever concerned about, then he could challenge me back. So, but I've always got the company's best interests at heart. But similarly, I've got my own best interests at heart as well, because I want to be the best version of myself.
Yeah, and again, you wouldn't be here after 26 years if there wasn't a great recipe that works. So interestingly enough, that's another thought in my mind is again, you've evolved personally an immense amount in your career, and the ILM part will have had a huge impact on how you conduct yourself, how you behave as a leader, and all of those added extra value parts that you've now put in place. If I was to step outside this office and speak to the team around here, that your direct reports, the people in the organization, what would they say in terms of that transition from maybe where you were 5-6 years ago to where you are today? What sort of differences would they see and have heard?
Could be an interesting response. Probably grown in confidence. I suppose because I lead lots of different initiatives, it enables the business to be stronger in the long run. If we didn't have the ED&I side as an example, we would be behind the times, and we want to be ahead of the times. So yeah, I guess I would hope they would say that I'm a strong leader, not just of people, but of strategies and initiatives that make our business stronger for the long run. And also that I'm approachable, that, if people want to get involved in things, that I'm like a cheerleader for that. And I'm really supportive, not telling them what to do, but enabling them to have the platform to them themselves perform at their best. So I'd hope they'd say all those things. I'm sure they probably would. So
lots of strategic thinking and giving them good direction is now really at the heart of what you and your role is about, right?
Yeah.
Well, on that note of direction, that's a nice little segue for us to have a little advert break. Gives us time for a quick rest, and then we'll come straight back to you with more from Becky. Thank you. This podcast is sponsored by Ignition. One of the most powerful skills you can have in leadership is the ability to coach and guide people so that they can reach the destination. It's important to remember that the journey along the way is equally as powerful in adopting new skills, understanding, and also the active practice. While running an automotive event, vehicle test drive, or even a fleet demo is no different. With Co-Driver, you can program a route with turn-by-turn guidance, which is accompanied by bespoke messaging related to the vehicle being travelled in or on. Imagine a Co-Driver on a rally stage giving you important notes about what is coming up. Co-Driver isn't just a solo tool either. In fact, it's a ground-up creation from Ignition's clever team of developers, meaning its fully customizable app sits within a suite of other really useful platforms. So if you're a retailer offering demonstration drives, an OEM delivering product training, or even a fleet manager helping would-be users how to get the best from their vehicle, Co-Driver can be programmed with unlimited GPS waypoints that activate specific information at a time that you want, with the information you want them to hear. Whether you have one vehicle, a convoy, or a fleet, having co-driver on board means your drivers and passengers can concentrate on the road ahead. Enjoy the features of the product whilst learning everything there is to know about the vehicle that they are using. For more information, visit www.ignitiononline.com. Now let's get back to the podcast. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us during that quick advert break. As you heard, it's from the Ignition brand who are supporting us and sponsoring us. Welcome back, Becky. And we've had a quick break and a quick moment for a chat off camera and off record about some of the topics that we wanted to cover off whilst we still have some time together. We were just talking about direction and strategy just before we took a break. And that led us to this point where we're sort of touching upon strategic leadership and building out our personal brands and all that great stuff around how we, advertise ourselves. So let's just spend a little bit more time on that. Again, Tate have done some incredible work in this area, thanks to you, growing out your social presence. But thinking from a recruitment perspective, you as a hiring manager need to make sure your values, beliefs, and morals are clear, as well as that of the leadership and strategic thinking, so that they're ultimately in the advert, don't you? Because otherwise people don't know who you are and what you're about. So give me some ideas and thoughts around what you've promoted to your clients and what you would do with your own services to really help people make the best of themselves and be at their best versions every day.
So I guess if you were advertising for someone to work for your organisation, the most important thing is to talk about what you care about in your organisation. Inclusion's huge. It's a hot topic. If it's not, it should be. So if you're flexible, offer flexibility, you talk about sort of if you've got employee resource groups, anything like that, things that matter to the people you're looking to attract should be included in those advertisements. But not just in those advertisements, also in your social media as well. So that's what we've aimed to do, is to bring that all to life about what it's like to work for Tate, what it's like to work with Tate, and what we're all about as people and what we care about. So funny enough, I ran some LinkedIn sessions for line managers last year, because it occurred to me, I was doing a webinar, I was a guest on a webinar for the CITF, which was the tech board. And they were saying about, the fact that, gosh, this would be so useful what I was talking about with regards to line managers. And it occurred to me, how much do line managers who are trying to attract, or leaders trying to attract people, talk about what they care about as individuals? So from a recruitment perspective, we hear all the time about hiring managers checking out candidates on social, seeing what they're like, because they want to make sure that they're the right people for their team. That happens in reverse. But actually, funny enough, what does happen is that not so many managers may have a social presence or a branding presence on LinkedIn and are talking about things that they care about. So from a applicant perspective, how do they know what they really like to work with, other than that interview potentially where hopefully that person's conveyed what they care about? So it occurred to me that, there's no point in being the best kept secret. We need to embrace social media. We need to embrace enhancing our brand. So all of these things are kind of culminated in everything that we're doing with the social media presence. Like I say, I work alongside the marketing department, so they might push out more of the corporate stuff, but then I come in with more of the personalised and humanised things where we're talking about the people and the ED&I work we're doing and lots of different other aspects that we share about. So, but all of that matters to people that you're trying to attract, particularly in a market where, we're skill short. We've got skill shortages, talent scarcity. That's not going anywhere anytime soon for a long time to come. And so our employer brand and our individual brands are becoming even more important now.
Yeah. I guess in the same vein, people have choice with the power of social media, internet access and all that marketing that most organizations do. Now, candidates can now do so much more research before they even think about submitting any form of CV or requesting support for a new role. it's entirely possible that they've done everything they need, all of the research they need to do online. And all they need to know is who that potential hiring manager is going to be, the recruitment departments of the company, all that stuff. And suddenly they have this really clear picture. And when they arrive at the building, they're just looking for affirmation of their preconceived thoughts. And as you say, those hiring managers or those sort of creating the adverts haven't done their job in the right, if they haven't done their job in the right way, suddenly they're creating this sort of micro culture before the arrival of the candidate, who is undoubtedly going to speak to other people as well. So depending on their experience and how they feel about it, whether they're hired or not, that voice is now, again, out there in the ether for everybody to hear. And that can be a really damaging thing. So I think what we are saying is, if you're a senior leader and you're using LinkedIn, use it well. Use it to gather people's opinions about topics you're passionate about and react to other people's reactions and all of that good stuff. And I see some really big names out there who do this well. Our background as an organization is very much in the automotive space, and I'm going to be quite bold to say that they're generally not that good at this. There are other industries out there that do this really well, and I look at the sort of fintechs and the pharmaceutical companies and places like that who are really good about talking about their topic area and talking about themselves, whereas the automotive space are just not that good at it. They tend to talk about their products, not their people, and that unfortunately is what's going to make you successful as an organization. It's getting the people bit right.
I agree. And LinkedIn can be scary for a lot of people. I remember when I first ventured onto the platform and thought, oh my goodness me, I feel like I'm sort of laying myself bare here. But again, you're just a human, just like everybody else out there. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It really doesn't. Actually, the less perfect it is, sometimes it makes it much more authentic and real. It doesn't matter if you get, the tense wrong in a sentence, too much. If it's, just let the passion flow. And talk about the things that matter to you. And you can start really simply by just sharing a post with a bit of commentary about something you care about and sharing why you're passionate about it. Or, like you say, commenting on someone else's post to make a post bigger. Networking is just so fundamentally important to people's careers nowadays as well. It's so, if I think about my journey with LinkedIn, from a very shy schoolgirl to now sitting, in a podcast now, with a network where if I hadn't have explored LinkedIn, I wouldn't have had some of the opportunities that I have been given, and I would never have expected to be given them, to be honest with you, at the beginning, like being guest speakers on webinars, being able to deliver 300 webinars through COVID for job seekers. All of those things I would never have imagined be doing, but somehow or another I plucked up the courage to do it, and I've done it, and it's really, really supported my learning, development, motivation, and kept me current. So I strongly am a very strong ambassador and advocate for it, for sure.
Yeah. I think you touched upon another great nugget there for me, thinking about that, and as an aspiring leader, someone who is going to a new role or into a new company, what's the toolkit that you would put together for them, and the thoughts and feelings or, actual attributes that they need to have to go and be successful? What would you package up in a toolkit for them based on your experience and what you now know?
Oh, that's a big question. I think, first of all, I would go in with a mindset of you don't need to have all the answers. And one of the most important things are to build a network around you so that you can pull upon people that can support you with the answers when they're needed. Obviously, not giving people the answers all the time, which is what we said before. But yeah, building your network around you to make your overall offering very powerful. If you just keep yourself to yourself, then obviously that makes it much harder. Look at the people around the business. Who are the great leaders? How are they behaving? What are they doing? Learn from them. Look for a mentor within your business. Not even from your business. It might be externally that you can talk to freely, that you can talk about sort of all the challenges that you might be having or concerns, and that that you've got someone that will listen to you, and where appropriate will give you guidance, but similarly might coach you as well for you to find the answers yourself. For find something you care passionately about, because I think as a leader, if you begin with something that's meaningful and purposeful for you, find what that is, and it will drive you through the tough times. It will help you engage the people around you, because you can never do it on your own. So you need to ensure that you've got a clear focus moving, forward. You start with the future. What is it you're looking to achieve? And then you engage the people around you. And in order for you to engage people around you, you need to have that passion and that drive about something that matters to you. So find what it is that matters to you. In the recruitment world, it could be that you're all about hitting that bottom line. But for me, what's more meaningful for me is how many people we place into jobs. That's what matters to me. So it's a different angle, but it still gets the same sorts of results. But that's what drives me. And similarly, that's what drove me through the webinars. How can I support more people to get jobs through COVID? You know what? I'm going to deliver some free webinars to people on LinkedIn to help people optimize their LinkedIn profile and to support them with their CV, because no one ever said they were the best job seeker ever. No one ever wants to be the best job seeker ever. We can be the best worker, but how do we actually communicate that through our CV? And it can be the hardest thing to do. And I think sometimes that really, really is such a loss for businesses and individuals, because there is that disconnect between that. But yeah, I think going back to your question, I think it's very much network, find your passion, your meaning. It will be much easier to engage your people, find a mentor, build that support network around you, and build a network of people that are positive around you, that build you up, not bring you down. And be brave. Do things that make you uncomfortable, and don't worry about making mistakes, because it's the quickest way to learn. And I've made plenty in my time, but I'm brave enough to take that step and do it. But I wasn't necessarily at the beginning, but certainly I am now. It becomes a little bit of a drug when you come out of your comfort zone and you reap the benefits of new stuff that you learn, that you want to do it again. It's a great feeling.
And when we talked off camera, I mentioned about certainly my career. I've transitioned through lots of different types of roles and different areas of expertise, and almost touching in that sort of imposter syndrome area. And I think the more senior you become, the more that tends to crop up in your career. And you have to try and validate to yourself that you're doing everything right and at the right time and all of that kind of thing. But I think the point that you made earlier, which is a really important one, is it's okay to not be at your best every day, and it's okay to make mistakes. The most important part is being clear in the messaging, knowing what direction you're trying to take everybody in, and allow them flexibility to go with you on the journey. You don't have to tell them how to do it, but you just need to be able to show them the way and guide them, which is obviously so important. And I think it's that, again, looking at this organisation and why you've had such long-standing staff members in the team, the business, is clearly you're doing something well and doing it right. It's that humanising part that you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. So before we wrap up and we come to a close of our time together, which has been great, by the way, I've loved talking with you, I just wanted to explore a couple more bits on a personal level. Now, you're at a very senior level in the organisation and you've done sort of 26 years of service. Would you go back in time and unravel all of this as a leader? Would you prefer to take a more operational role where you maybe don't have the sort of direct reports, people responsibilities, and all that sort of big strategic thinking at the heart of what you do? Would you change that?
I would change anything I've been through. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't gone through the challenges, the hurdles, the tidal waves, and the learning, all of those sorts of things. I enjoyed the operational management side. It was right for me at the time. It was scary taking that step from being a doer, because it was a comfort blanket, because I knew what I was doing, into a role where I was like, oh gosh, this is a bit, I've got to come up with my own ideas. I've got to be more proactive. I've got to think strategically. I love it. I wouldn't change a thing.
That's so good. And in a nutshell, be human. Have that curiosity to learn and develop people, and try to see out the time within the company. Because what's clear is that when you're dedicated, committed to an organization, you can grow with them and you can reap the benefits and succeed hugely, as you have with Tate.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
I thank you again for taking the time to chat with me, Becky. It's been great to learn more about you, your career in the recruitment industry. One final thing I want to cover with you is you're a fellow podcaster, right?
Yeah, I haven't done it for a little while, but yes, on our website we've got a podcast. We've got a few episodes around Everybody's Got Talent, it's called.
What a great name.
Because everybody has got talent.
And where would people find you? So is it the normal channels, Spotify, Apple?
All of them are on there or our website. And obviously got LinkedIn presence as well. So, yeah.
So you can find Becky and the Tate Recruitment business on LinkedIn. Also, the podcast we've just talked about is on YouTube. So if you want to catch Becky again, her smiling face and some of her great guests that she speaks with, you can check out her channel on YouTube. But once again, thank you for tuning in to Lead By, the Ezeni podcast, all about leadership and leadership topics. Join us again soon for another episode. Thanks for listening. What an episode. Thank you to Becky for being so hospitable and giving up some time to talk to us about her career and her learnings. This is what we love about the medium of podcasts. They allow for a real and authentic chat in which so many great nuggets of wisdom are shared. If you want to learn more about what was discussed in this episode, seek some support for your team or business, or you're taking the leap into your first leadership role and you need some advice, well, reach out to us here at Ezeni by visiting www.ezeni.com or emailing us at hello@ezeni.com. That's EZENI.com. Thank you for joining me, and we look forward to having you back soon for another episode of Lead By, Ezeni's leadership podcast.